On September 10th of this year, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And when this happened, I prayed for his soul. This was, in hindsight, a mistake. Not the prayer itself, because I think that's kind of the bare minimum you can do when you're a Christian and someone dies. There's a reason that thoughts and prayers seem so hollow. It's because they are. It's the smallest possible gesture towards someone's humanity one can possibly give. So I prayed my hollow little prayer for Charlie Kirk. I said, God, give Charlie Kirk more mercy than Charlie Kirk gave to the world. But here's why I call it a mistake. Because when you pray, it is a two-way line, which means sometimes God tells you to do stuff you don't want to do. And God told me that I was going to write a eulogy for Charlie Kirk. To which I responded, go fuck yourself. No way am I doing that. I am trans. I am not writing a eulogy for some Nazi. Kiss my entire ass. But here's the thing. I have had enough Jonah and the fish moments to know that running from God is pretty much impossible. And that God has a terrible habit of scooping you up and spitting you out on the shores of Nineveh, whether you like it or not. My Nineveh was Charlie Kirk. And my big fish was that for the past several days, I have woken up every morning weeping for Charlie Kirk. Something that objectively did not make any sense to me. I was not someone who knew this man personally, and I certainly wasn't a fan of the way he spent his life. So I couldn't figure out why I felt this immense grief. I told myself it was because his children saw it happen. I told myself it was because of the legacy of hate he left behind. I told myself it was because no one should die from gun violence. I told myself so many lies about why I kept crying. I told myself a whole load of bullshit. And as this is happening, I'm doom scrolling through social media, and I begin to realize that everyone else is also bullshitting. The right-wingers are talking about what a brave truth seeker he was and how he was martyred for his Christian faith. The liberals are going, now, I didn't see eye to eye with Charlie, but we need to maintain peace through our political disagreements and not speak ill of the dead. There are loads and loads of disingenuous thoughts and prayers. My own community of leftists and trans people are painting him as a subhuman monster. And that's what I thought of him too. I didn't want to write Charlie Kirk a eulogy because I didn't want to see the face of God in Charlie Kirk. I didn't want to see Charlie Kirk as human. I wanted Charlie Kirk and his memory to stay in his Nazi box, away from civilized society. I wanted to forget this man ever even existed. And if he was remembered, I wanted him remembered as a twisted monstrosity. I wanted to be the righteous one in this situation. I wanted to be the good, noble person in contrast to his evil. But then, as I was washing a car at work, I was listening to Pastrix by Nadia Bolz-Weber on audiobook. I had stopped right in the middle of a sentence the last time I was listening. And so the first thing I heard when I put on my headphones and pressed play were these words. There's a popular misconception about religion that it helps us know the difference between good and evil. But good has never set me free the way truth has. Jesus didn't contrast good and evil. He contrasted evil with the truth. And right there, covered in dirt and sweat and soap from the car wash, I finally said, fine, God, I'll write the damn eulogy. Because it was in that moment I realized something. For his entire career, Charlie Kirk framed himself as a truth seeker, but never actually succeeded in telling the truth in any capacity. In fact, I'm not sure I heard Charlie Kirk tell the truth on a single occasion. And because Charlie Kirk spent his life as a liar, he was completely surrounded by other people willing to uphold his lies. I have to give Charlie Kirk an honest eulogy, because no one else is going to. Because so many people are trying to be good right now. They're trying to be good Republicans, good Democrats, good leftists, good Christians, good allies. One of the good ones. They are trying to save face, or look cool to their friends, or not speak ill of the dead. And everyone is trying so hard to be good, they've forgotten to be honest. They are trying so hard to uphold social norms that they've stopped realizing the systems of oppression they're upholding. They become so desensitized to violence that they've forgotten to grapple with the complexity of it. So I, a transgendered, am going to give Charlie Kirk a eulogy. I'm going to give a eulogy for a man who hated me without ever knowing me, who wanted me dead by nature of who I am. This act of genuine compassion would undoubtedly horrify him, especially since he believed empathy made you weak. But this compassion is genuine. I am not doing this out of spite or to roast him, though it is tempting. I am not doing this to look good to anyone. In fact, I'm fairly sure that of all the sermons I've ever done, this one is probably the one that will make the most people angry at me. I am doing this because the truth will set us free. And while Charlie Kirk claimed he spent his whole life searching for the truth, he did not spend one quiet second listening for it. Some people will call him a hero. Others will downplay how bad his ideology was by calling it a difference of opinion. Some will offer disingenuous thoughts and prayers to save face. Others will treat him as inhuman or deserving of what happened to him. But all of those are spiritually dishonest. Charlie Kirk was an awful, brutal man. He believed terrible, cruel things, and he spread those things online like wildfire. Charlie Kirk believed that the civil rights movement was a mistake, that Muslims would cause the fall of civilization, and that transgender people should be taken care of like they were in the 50s. His target demographic for his online presence was impressionable, lonely young men and boys who had become disillusioned with the world around them. Charlie Kirk believed in death. He believed in torture. He believed that some humans mattered less than others. He was anti-kindness, anti-empathy, anti-humanity. That is the reality of who Charlie Kirk was, and no amount of lying to oneself or getting mad at me can make him anything other than that. Not the fact that he spoke clearly, not the fact that he had a nice suit, not the fact that he had a wife and children, or the fact that he had the ear of the president. This is a man whose final word was violence. That was the word he lived and died for. Now, let me be very clear. Because I am a Christian, personally, I am a pacifist. However, when it comes to political violence, I have always struggled with certain circumstances. For example, is it justified for a slave to kill his master to free himself? Was what John Brown did justified? If Hitler had not taken himself out, would his execution have been warranted? We often think of these questions in terms of evil or righteousness. I do not believe that is the correct framing. I do not think these moments in history can be looked at through this lens, because I fundamentally think that asking, is this good or evil, is far too simplistic. We must not be tempted in these situations to contrast good and evil. We must contrast evil with the truth. So I think the correct question is, was this inevitable? But people do not like this question, because it grants us neither the relief that comes from the death of an evil man, nor does it give us the smug satisfaction of resisting the urge to rejoice. We neither get to eat cake and celebrate, nor do we get to claim the moral high ground by shouting, "Peace! Peace!" when there is no peace. We neither get to lie to ourselves and pretend this man was better than he was, nor do we get to cast off his humanity and distance ourselves from him. Asking, was this inevitable, robs us of both vengeance and of emotional catharsis. So when the question is asked, those who are rejoicing become frustrated. They feel they are being judged for celebrating the death of an evil man. After all, why shouldn't they take part in the celebration? Why shouldn't they revel in the feeling of relief that comes from the boot being lifted slightly? Those who want to feel self-satisfied by calling for peace become frustrated as well, as they'd rather overlook the harm done and the deaths caused by the evil man. After all, two wrongs don't make a right, and political violence is, at the end of the day, still murder. Those who have convinced themselves the evil man was a hero also leave unsatisfied. It cuts through the delusions of heroism that they have built up around the evil man. They want to believe that the things he said and did are good, because they want to believe that the things they say and do are good. They want to go unchallenged in their faith, and they want to believe that God thinks all the same things they do. They are denied justification for the violence they are itching to commit. These are all easy statements to make for those making them, but all are also intellectually and spiritually dishonest, because political violence is murder. To say that murder is good is dishonest. It is not good. It takes a human from the world. No matter how evil that human is, it is a reality. The far better option would be for that evil person to repent, to change their ways, to turn themselves towards a path of righteousness. The problem is, they often don't. And an evil man cannot be allowed to continue on with his evil unchallenged. In this way, to rejoice in the death of an evil man is to ignore the sin another person had to commit in order to remove the evil man from the world. That sin has a price. The murderer of the evil man now has to live with that on his conscience. His family, as well as the family of the evildoer, will have to live with these spiritual, emotional, and political consequences. And there are political consequences. Always. History decides how those consequences are perceived. However, to call for peace in such times is just as, if not more, dishonest. It is to call for something that does not exist, and that the evil man has no intention of holding up his end of the bargain to maintain. It is the evil man who has broken the social contract. It is he who has ensured that peace is impossible. The murderer of the evil man, and those who rejoice in the evil man's murder, are often those who do desire peace, but understand that peace is not possible while the evil man continues to do evil. That it is not the responsibility of those who the evil man wishes to do evil towards to maintain an impossible peace. They understand that those who call for peace often do not actually want peace. What they want is quiet. Even more dishonest still are those who wish to lionize a man whose words led so many people down a path of hate and destruction, to make him into a martyr in order to satisfy their own egos and violent tendencies. By asking, was this inevitable, we satisfy no party. We allow no one to sit idle in the repeated slogans of their in-group. We force those who wish to rejoice to understand the weight of a life taken. We force those who want to pretend that evil is good to face reality, and we force those who want to seek moral high ground to come to terms with their desire to look away. By telling the truth, we force people to actually think for themselves and decide what they truly believe in. Was Charlie Kirk's murder good or bad? Both, and neither. And we have to sit with that complexity. Not just because a life was ended, but because Charlie Kirk's murder is currently in Schrodinger's cat territory. We have no idea what is going to happen. We have no idea what is to come. We have no clue if this will be the catalyst for a war or the cost of freedom. Perhaps it will be both. Perhaps it will simply be forgotten in the endless news cycle. Perhaps Charlie Kirk will be treated as some sort of alt-right martyr. Perhaps his name will be lost to history. That fate is not yet decided, and we have no clue how history will record it. But it was inevitable. If not him, then Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro or Nick Fuentes or Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. Because these evil men have created a pressure valve that needs released. And eventually, someone was destined to snap. People have been snapping. It was only a matter of time before the snake began to eat its own tail, and the violence Charlie Kirk perpetuated begat more violence. Someone was going to kill one of these men eventually, because this evil has gone unpunished for too long. There have been no consequences, so people are starting to create them. I will continue to pray for Charlie Kirk, because I think Charlie Kirk is in hell right now. I don't know that, but I do believe that, and to say otherwise in a eulogy about honesty would be a bit counterproductive. However, I don't think hell is forever, because I don't believe that a merciful God would punish temporary sin with endless torment. I think hell is like supernatural therapy to sort yourself out before you are eventually reconciled by God. I don't think God sends you to a place of peace or torture as much as God shows you the truth of your heart. And whether that truth is heaven or hell is up to you. So right now, I think Charlie Kirk is having the worst time possible. Because Charlie Kirk has just been faced with eternal justice, unrelenting empathy, and divine truth. Charlie Kirk has just realized that heaven is full of a bunch of people and ideas he spent his whole life hating. I think he is sitting in a room with a painting of a waterfall while some bespectacled queer angel says, "So Charlie, tell me about your childhood." I believe that right now Charlie Kirk is clawing at the walls, screaming for God to let him out, and I think that the angel is saying softly, "Now, Charlie, that is no way to behave. Have a seat." And both the thought of Charlie Kirk having a terrible time right now and the thought of him eventually being reconciled and repenting and going to heaven are things that bring me an immense amount of joy. I look forward to meeting the Charlie Kirk that could have been had he made better choices. We have to learn to live in the contradiction. To pray for the evildoer is not to condone their actions. It is to recognize their humanity. It is to do the bare minimum when they could not find it in themselves to do that for others. So I will pray, but I will not condemn those who rejoice, and I will ask those who also wish to pray to not use that prayer as an excuse to look away from injustice. Because if you condemn those who choose political violence to achieve their liberation, it is your responsibility to find a more creative solution. And the clock is ticking. If you want peace, you must first find a path towards justice. Otherwise, it is inevitable that the path will be made by a bullet tearing through flesh. But we also must not dehumanize this man, because if we do so, we will not understand the true tragedy of Charlie Kirk's death. Charlie Kirk is a cautionary tale of what happens when you start believing your own bullshit. His story is one of hubris, the story of a man killed by the political pressure cooker he helped to create. And it's unfortunate, because he was young and smart and a good communicator. He could have done something with all that. He could have made the world better than he found it. But he didn't. Even if you liked him, objectively, he didn't. He made it worse for a whole lot of people and improved the lives of very few, if any at all. Because Charlie Kirk was not telling it like it is. He was just telling cruel people what they wanted to hear. He was repeating people's cruel thoughts back to them and telling them that they were right to want to act on them. Charlie Kirk's death is a tragedy because he wasted his life, his talent, all the gifts God gave him, and the system around him rewarded him for that. It gave him money and fame and attention. Charlie Kirk's life was a tragedy because he sold his soul. If there is anyone in this world who tried to serve two masters, it was him. And I began to realize that's why I was grieving Charlie Kirk. Because he was given every gift imaginable, and he squandered them all. I grieved the loss of a Charlie Kirk that he himself never allowed to exist. We can't make men into monsters, lest we forget our own capacity for monstrous behavior. We have to remember that we are all capable of believing our own bullshit if we lie enough. I understand now that the reason I was weeping for Charlie Kirk was because I didn't want him dead. What I wanted was for him to be a better man than he was. Charlie Kirk was not a hero. He was not a monster. He was just a man. A sad, small, fragile man. And he died the way all of us likely will. Confused and afraid. So, Charlie, if you are out there and you can hear me, I am sorry things turned out this way for you. And I mean that genuinely. I'm sorry you made the choices you made, and that the young man who took your life made the choices he made. I'm sorry that your wife and children had to see that, and I hope your community ties were strong enough that people bring them lots of casseroles. I'm sorry that the system failed you, and that you failed so many others. So now, instead of hollow thoughts and prayers, I want to offer a genuine one. Dear Lord, embrace Charlie Kirk with your infinite love and kindness. Show him the truth that he never knew in life. Show him your face so that he may know mercy. Forgive Charlie Kirk of his bullshit, and forgive us of our bullshit as well. Give Charlie Kirk an enlightening time in hell. Give him a warm blanket and group therapy and as many pudding cups as he wants. Help him come to terms with everything he has ever done, and let him know a peace that he denied his earthly siblings. And, if I may be allowed just a bit of shade at the end of this to soothe my petty, selfish soul, fix that ugly fucking mouth of his, both physically and metaphorically. Bring Charlie Kirk into the light, O Lord, because if there's one thing I have experienced when it comes to you, it is your ability to cut straight through the bullshit. Rest in truth, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be an example of who not to be. Amen.